Okay, the hook's debarbed.
I don't think you need to see that, but he can.
So here's how I've got tweezers. Put the bead in the tweezer. Now, beads have, if you look at them, the hole through the bead is different size on each side. You want to put the small diameter hole onto the hook first. Then I'll
Frank, you're doing good. You're doing good.
and I'll turn that back and
And don't cover the eye.
You need to drop the.
Drop that
There
first.
you go.
Now, now tighten the.
Oh, that's easy.
Nope.
there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Again, start your thread right behind the bead. Get several wraps in there, then you can clip off your tag end. Next, remember the rule that Gary's taught, the last thing you're going to wrap on the fly is the first thing you tie on. So the next step is going to be that piece of black wire. And a comment about the wire, if you were at the meeting when Clay Henry came and talked to us, he was the guy that says he fishes midges all the time too. When he ties this midge, he uses a black floss. And he likes floss instead of wire. I like wire because it's easier to work with.
It gives it a little more weight.
That's true. It does add a little more weight. So stick that wire into the bead if you can, into that bead, and then want to tie that down.
What size of those? Small.
And
Gary, just watch. Watch the first go around.
wrap that back to just about where the bend of the hook starts. And then at that point, here's an optional step. If you remember when we tied this last year, those of you that were here, I put a little piece of flash tail on these, on all of my flies. That's my trademark. And the only reason I trademark that is so I know that I tied that fly. Whether it helps or not, it doesn't seem to hurt, so most of my flies have got a little flash-a-boo tail on them.
I knew that.
Just have to make sure
So-
your grandkids aren't into your
Yeah. And then as soon as that's secured, clip that off just about 1/4 of an inch or less. So there's just a little tiny flash tail on here. And then the next step, and we're going to tie this, is to take a piece of the red tinsel. This is holographic tinsel, so it reflects light in a whole lot of different directions and it's supposed to help attract better. I'm going to lay that on the bottom of the hook. You could, if you have a rotary vise, by all means, the step I'm doing now, you could use rotary. Yes, sir.
A suggestion, if you're wrapping that, use your index finger of your other hand as you make the wrap, and it'll hold it in place. And then you could make the other wrap and just wrap forward, and you don't have to put as much pressure on the tinsel if you've got it attached with your finger. Just kind of press it.
And
actually easier. There are fewer wraps and
Okay. I think we may make it this time. Okay, when you get wrapped up to the bead, I take an extra wrap or two so that I've got plenty of tinsel there to capture with my thread and get it tied down really well. So take a 2 or 3, at least 3 wraps behind the tinsel, and then a couple in front. Then we're ready to clip off the tinsel. And then a few more wraps right there to make sure the front of that tinsel is tied down. Then I used to counter wrap my wire most of the time. And then I made a discovery, and that's still a recommended step on some flies, but here's what I determined on my flies. If you're counter wrapping and then you go to cinch that down with your thread, then you are putting pressure away from the wire, so it's going to tend to want to unwrap. And so I figured out that, you know, I can't tell any difference. I'm gonna not counter wrap my wire, and so now I'm wrapping in the same direction the wire's wrapped. So to me, in my feeble little mind, it's helping lay that wire down on the hook better. So that's me on this particular fly. I don't counter wrap on many. Okay, going to wrap the wire. We're going to segment the body now with this black wire. And it doesn't take a whole lot of segments. You know, I haven't counted, but probably 5, maybe 6. And so there's just, you know, several segments along there. That try and space them evenly as best you can. And then with the wire, come again behind. Oh, by the way, when I get to the end, I make a couple extra wraps with the wire at the bead to be sure there's plenty of wire up there to secure with the thread. So 3 wraps behind, couple wraps in front, and then we're gonna helicopter this wire to break it off. So to do that, bring your bobbin all the way up to the hook, and then just spin that wire, and it'll tend to break off right there at the barb. Then several more wraps right behind the bead. Final step is whip finish. About 5 times. I usually do it twice.
If one is good, 2 are better.
Because I don't know if it's showing up on the screen, but that's not the prettiest fly I've ever tied. And there's a ruby midge. We're going to zoom in a little bit. So, and that's, I tied that on a size 16 hook.
But you gave the class 14? Yeah.
Ron should tell them the difference between a ruby midge and a zebra midge.